My name is Babar Ahmad. I grew up in South London, lived with my parents and three siblings in a small family home. After graduating from university, I was working at a university in London in the IT department. And I'll just go to work and just come back in the morning, just trying to survive like everyone else is. Tuesday, 2nd of December 2003, my house was raided. It was early in the morning, and about 15 or 20 police officers in riot gear burst into the house. And over the next 40 minutes, they subjected me to an ordeal of physical, sexual, religious, and vulgar abuse. Punched me on my head, kneed me on my thighs, stamped on my bare feet with their boots, swore at me. They smashed my head through the window. They swore at me. And after about, I don't know how long it was, one of the senior officers, he asked me to confirm my name and date of birth. And then when I did that, he said that you're being arrested under the Terrorism Act. Up to that point, I was thinking that there's been a mistake. Maybe they've got the address wrong. Maybe it's a drugs raid gone wrong. They've meant to go to another address, and we had a little, like a carpeted room that we would sit on the floor and use for prayer. They smashed up that room, put me in the prostration position, and mocked my religion, made fun of my religion, tried to put me in two chokeholds in the van on the way to the police station. When I got to the police station, I had 73 physical injuries, including bleeding in my ears and bleeding in my urine. I got released without charge after 7 days. One of my immediate family, then one of the ladies, she actually had a miscarriage a few days after the raid on her house. She had a miscarriage as a result of the stress that induced. I mean, you can't really get any bigger than that, any more traumatic than that. Parents the family was scared, they were unsettled, they were unsure, they didn't know what was happening, especially when they found out what had happened to me in terms of like how I'd been assaulted and treated. It was a quite unsettling time for the whole family, a very, very unpleasant and a very unsettling time. I took off like 2 months off work to recover from my physical injuries. I started having nightmares, bad dreams, started having flashbacks. I became really tense, on edge. I felt scared. I didn't want to go out. I was just on edge all the time, that if I'd hear a small sound, then it would just wake me up. And I was diagnosed with something a few months after that incident. I was diagnosed with something called post-traumatic stress disorder, which is basically like an extreme type of a traumatic injury. Like when you go through something pretty traumatic, then it affects you, and it starts affecting you and your personality and your being. My family was also affected. My parents were affected. My siblings were affected. They felt insecure. They felt unsafe. They felt people were watching them. They felt that there might be another raid at any time. It was, looking back at that period, even though it's been a long time, it was a very unsettling time for us. 8 months later, I was rearrested. It's nothing to do with the UK authorities, but the US authorities had sought my arrest. I then spent the next 8 years in UK prisons without trial. Up to now, I still hold the record for the longest British citizen detained without trial in the modern history of the UK. 5 years of that was in isolation, not knowing what my future is, not knowing, am I going to be extradited or not? Am I going to be, am I going to be released? What is my future? I had no idea for those 8 years. I lost my extradition fight against extradition, and on the 5th of October 2012, I was put in blindfolds and earmuffs and shackles, and I was extradited on a private jet from a Royal Air Force base in the UK to America. I spent the next 2 years in complete isolation, in solitary confinement in a US Supermax prison in America. After that time, 2 years into that isolation, and that's basically what that means is 24 hours a day behind your cell. You're alone. You get strip searched every time you leave your cell. There's mentally ill inmates who bang the doors and shout and scream all night long, so you're not able to sleep. Your food is passed to you through a small slot in the door. You're let out once a day for an hour's recreation inside a like a small dog cage, which is like 4 paces up and 2 paces to the side. I witnessed on average 1 suicide attempt a week over there, and there was actually 3 suicide attempts in one day that I witnessed. There was so much blood in there, it smelled like a butcher's shop. The uncertainty was the hardest thing for myself and my family. Just not knowing what lay ahead, and we just have to go through. I mean, am I going to be home for next Eid or not? And on top of that was the prison conditions. You're alone. You find officers that are good to you, and there's officers that are malicious towards you, and that increases your stress levels. But it was a difficult time for my parents in particular. They were elderly, and the biggest worry for me was, are my parents still going to be alive if or when I come out of prison? Am I going to be one of those prisoners who gets a knock on the door from the chaplain, and the chaplain says, I need to talk to you. We need to come and I need to sit in a private room and talk to you. And on the way to that private room, the only thing that's going through your head is, who is it? Is it mum? Is it dad? Is it brother? Is it sister? Because you know that they're only doing something like that to tell you the news that a loved one has died. And I'd seen that happen to other prisoners. So in total, I spent 11 years in prison, and that was one of my biggest fears, that one of my close family members would die and I would not be able to attend their funeral. I mean, it was an unimaginable ordeal that my family went through at that time. So after approximately 2 years, the US prosecutor, they offered me a deal. They said, plead guilty and you can be back home within 6 months. I couldn't sign quick enough. The judge, she declared, this man is not a terrorist. He's a good man. He's not a threat to anyone. And by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was released and I came home to the UK in the summer of 2015. HUGS was actually set up soon after I went to prison in 2004. My family told me that there's a charity that's been set up to help families in position like ours, and they're going to help with prison visits. So that was actually the single biggest help that HUGS gave to me throughout the years that I was in prison. My parents were elderly. I was kept in prisons far from home, and HUGS would pay for a driver once a month to collect my parents from their home and to bring them to, and these are volunteers. In some cases, the HUGS would pay their petrol money. They would drive my parents, wait in the car park for the several hours of checking and the 2-hour prison visit, and then they would drive all the way home and drop them. And they did this for a number of years. They did this. They used to send cards to my family every Eid. They used to send them meat on Eid al-Adha. They used to send them little presents and gift boxes in Ramadan, and with little notes that we're thinking of you. They would phone them. They would check up on my family. They would ask if they need anything. And when you're going through so much, an experience like that, you feel like the whole world is against you. But these small things that HUGS were doing was making all the difference. They weren't making a song and dance about it. There wasn't any photo opportunity. It was all selfless. It was all done behind closed doors, and it was done relentlessly for a number of years. I lost my job, I lost my money, I lost my savings, I lost my house, I lost my marriage. Everything that I owned at that point, I lost it, having been in prison for so many years without trial. I came out in a pretty fragile, like psychological state, and I didn't trust anyone. I was like paranoid. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't eating well. So I went to my doctor and I asked for a referral, for some sort of trauma treatment or therapy to help me get back, rehabilitate into normal life. Several months went by and I didn't even get an acknowledgement letter from the NHS. Someone from Hugs that approached my family and said that, look, we have a certain budget which is to help prisoners rehabilitate. I didn't have to go to them. They were keeping touch. They were already asking, they were keeping touch, they were making offers. And sometimes you don't think of something unless someone offers it. I went through about 20 sessions of trauma therapy by an expert professor who was an expert in war, detention, and torture. Those 20 sessions were, I would say, one of the best things that I've ever done in my life, because they helped me make sense of everything that I had been through, how to deal with my family, and there were things in there that benefited my family as well, how to deal with me. I was able to restore a large sense of functionality and normality to my life. Other people who come out from experiences like this, who came home from Guantanamo Bay, and they've been home for many, many years, and they're still suffering the effects of some of these problems. If Hugs had not made that offer to me to get trauma therapy at that point, 5 years on, I still think that I would not be sleeping at night. I'd be paranoid. But thanks to Hugs, I was able to find my feet after coming home from prison within 1 year. And that's quite remarkable given how long I was away for 11 years. My biggest worry was my family. As long as my family was being taken care of and someone was looking out for my family, then that made me able to sleep at night. And Hugs, they played that role, that I knew that Hugs was there looking out for my family, and that we were not alone in this ordeal. There was someone holding our hands, there was someone with us, and there was someone supporting us. And that is why I was able to get through what I was able to get through, because I knew that there was a rope or a handle that my family could hold onto while we were navigating through this ordeal. And I many brothers in prison that I spoke to, and they were visibly touched and moved, and that calmed them down, and that reaffirmed their trust in humanity, where they began to think, well, there are still good people in the world. It's not all a conspiracy. The whole world is not out to get me. Look at these people, they're strangers. They brought my family. And I know of many brothers today who are outside prison, and now they are just living normal lives. They're just, they have families now. They're taking care of their family. They're doing community work. They're doing all of these things. And when these people were in prison, they were angry, bitter people, angry at the whole world. But because of the love and kindness that Hugs showed towards their families, then those people are in a different place today. People would say, now, why should I give my money to Hugs, the people that are supporting families of prisoners? I mean, there's people in Pakistan haven't got masks to put on their face. There's people in Africa that are dying. But the companion of the Prophet, Uthman, radiallahu anhu, never just spent his money on one particular project. He fed the poor. He paid for the masjid, for the mosque to be built. So on the Day of Judgment, this man, you will find where a portion of his money will be in every single different project or charitable venture. So he had his hand in every piece. And, when we do something different, then we can make a difference. It doesn't have to be an either or. You don't know where your money would have more of an impact, and which of it would be accepted by Allah, and which would give you the most reward. how I can summarize hugs: love, kindness, and love, kindness, and empathy. And this is what hugs showed my family. And where I am in my life today now, having gone through all of that, it's all behind me. I've come out of this ordeal with Allah's help. I'm not angry at anyone. I'm not full of hatred or bitterness. I'm not looking for revenge. What helped me to get to and to become the person I am today, and amongst one of the things that played a crucial role in this, was the role that hugs played, and I'll accept from them.